The bull run hasn't even begun. I actually tend to agree with this one. Today we're talking about why I do think that the bull run hasn't even begun, what's actually going to be next for this market, where you should be positioning your assets, maybe you should be shorting at this stage, what type of assets you actually might be shorting, and what's next in general from my point of view. Yesterday I told you that Bitcoin is going to $84,000 and then to 71K. This is exactly what have happened from the first part of the whole thing. Yesterday, we were as low as $76,000. Around this time, I told you we are going to 84K. 84K exactly, we tapped it and we reversed from here. Exactly. 100% move predicted, right? 71K is essentially not something that I would want to be seeing myself, right? It would be quite hurtful. We would essentially be at, pretty low. And in terms of alts, probably like it would be just a bloodbath, especially for the alts that I'm essentially holding, which are the lower caps out there. And the speculation that's happening in the marketplace currently that I actually wanted to focus on is about this Bitcoin fractal from 2020. Everyone is talking about it, and everyone seemed to be thinking that, this is something that is happening exactly. And this BTC fractal happened exactly before the alt season essentially started, exactly before the final nice expansion out there. Year-wise, I won't say we are 100% there because 2020 was a halving year, right? And it was just a different correlation in terms of 2025 at this stage. But the fractals is something that we have to focus on. The fractals is something that we definitely have to take into account when looking at this market. And this chart shows that there was a semi gap that essentially chart closed, and right after it continued with the sideways consolidation and expansion right after. Pretty similar situation to the current price action on BTC. The only difference is that essentially here we tapped into the support at these local highs and this local sideways price action. Right now, we still have a lot of time to actually go to tap into the support of this thing. That's exactly actually around $71,000. So it definitely makes the case on 71K even stronger because in the first place, you're tapping on the support on the sideways price action, which was present here for a bunch of time. You're closing the CME gap. Like in this scenario, you would be doing it slightly higher, but still. And at the same time, you're kind of fleshing out everyone before the final expansion, final move up. Because people here, like right now at this stage, they're still trying to launch alts. I would say that with each and every liquidation that we are seeing on leverage, the amount of money that's getting liquidated is lower and lower and lower and lower. And people started to hedge with shorts. They essentially effectively started to short as well. 71K scenario is just something that I'm highly likely see from my end, mainly because of the fact that S&P kind of might be moving lower from these levels, which is just connected with the strategy of Trump at this stage. Trump just wants to push the stock market down so they can cut rate, so they can have essentially the cheaper dollar, so they can trade effectively and they can manipulate the way they want to, right? 5 years ago today, this is exactly something that I just showed you, right? This is exactly this thing. And alts, they would decimate it through this move 100%, right? And it's interesting. Average Ethereum holder experience. Some of us are not gonna make it. Interesting. So Ethereum wise, the price is essentially at the same levels as it was during the FTX crash, which is quite insane if you think about that. More of the same bull run hasn't even begun. Partially, I shared on this thesis yesterday on the fact that I kind of still do think the same because in the bull run, you don't have the majority just losing money, right? Like assets and portfolios, they're not going down 70, 80, 90% in the bull runs, 100%. They obviously go there after the end of the bull runs, right? But I'm not thinking that we're essentially just at the end of this stage and everything is over. I would argue that alt season and the alts, they never have seen a bull market. And some people, they would essentially argue that it's not true because we had SUI pumping, we had Solana pumping, we had even major assets like XRP and BNB like showing some excess. XRP did quite nicely. BNB showed like 3x from the bottoms as well. But it just does not feel like a proper bull run in terms of the liquidity that we had in the market. I won't say that the giant rotation of liquidity from stocks into crypto actually happened. I won't say that we are at the top of the liquidity cycle at this stage. M2 is still expanding currently, right? And it just seems like we should see a continuation from here. Right now, it's definitely a healthy shakeout, from my point of view, right? But again, if we're going to 71K, that's definitely going to be hurtful. Mitch might be the worst trader of this cycle. Imagine fumbling $7.5 million. Yeah, so Mitch essentially the guy who was buying memes on Solana, all of your stuff that was like pumping like crazy. And essentially the situation right now is that he's saying still holding every single coin in my hodl wallet, aka god.sol, which used to be valued around 8 million 5 months ago. Pretty insane. So right now it's valued at half a million, which means that he's down 7.5 million. I think Murad is also down 40 million at this stage, 40. And I would say Mitch assets, they're definitely doing not that well in comparison to the assets of Murad, because Murad was mostly holding Giga and SPX. SPX is quite alright. Giga obviously is not that alright at this stage. This is the story that probably a lot of us experienced ourselves or essentially heard about. I lost everything, it's over. My second cycle and I lost again. Made 5 million plus, and instead of stabling up, I bought dips on big memes like Popcat, Giga, Momo, Retardia, and then crashed like 90-95%, and then I sold the bottom and tried leverage trade. I made $65,000 and then I done it again, and I'm now down to my last penny, close to my liquidation. And after this, I will be at zero. I don't know if I can or have the will or energy to do this again from zero. I'm officially fucked. And some sharing some advice in here as well, that you should be stabling up on the run and just setting this money aside. Something that Crash Essential also has just mentioned recently. But yeah, the story is quite crazy. I can say that like partially I have the same story as well. I was not like setting a lot of money aside. And yeah, like it's pretty fucking insane. That's essentially the main reason of why I was absent for the last couple of weeks. I just went on vacation. I was driving for 20 hours just myself and some music, and yeah, a transforming experience for sure. I would definitely say that. So this is the situation at this stage for the crypto market. This is the situation for people out there who are trying to play on this market in terms of some assets, in terms of some things that I actually wanted to focus on. I just wanted to compare something. So here's the chart of bread. Let me put it right here. And I wanted to compare it to the chart of BTC in the previous cycle. And it's quite interesting that if you would essentially compare it to the chart of BTC from the previous cycle, you would see that we kind of had the double top formation scenario right there. Let me put this one on the daily so you would see the whole situation happening. So it's very, very similar to the double top scenario currently, to the chart of BTC in the previous cycle. It's terribly similar if you would essentially ask me, right? Obviously, it has the chart history before this price action, but at this stage, nah, man, like it's like this thing definitely had a bull market already. And a bunch of assets like this, they had a bull market already. And the speculation here is that, do you really think that it will just continue go up from here and just go to new all-time highs? From my point of view, and I'm not just talking about bread here, I'm talking about most of meme coins out there. I would say most of the assets that had done nicely in this last period of like essentially 2024, right? To me, it seems like it should go sideways, it should consolidate, and essentially, if it's going to go to new all-time highs, it should be printing something like this on the chart. Because like I'm not seeing these crazy reversal happening at this stage. Like it definitely would need to change some hands around these levels, right? And from my point of view, it might need some time. Obviously, it's a meme coin, and following the previous periods of accumulation and sideways price action on this thing, I can definitely say that it definitely goes through this period way faster than other less the assets that have less demand from the marketplace. But this is essentially just something I'm seeing. And then the question I have, what will be pumping then instead? Maybe I'm wrong here, and maybe like you should just be buying bread. I do think like longing bread from these levels with low leverage. Well, this is something I was saying before, so it's hard to say it currently, but it really feels like if we're going to like 71K, we might not be seeing a vast drop on a huge drop on alts and memes. Like maybe they will create new lows around these levels, right? But it's something like they should not be like expanding heavily into the downside, mainly because it's almost like max fear is already happened for them. It's almost like this last dip of yesterday was the bottom for a lot of them. Like obviously this is something I am just sharing at this stage, but it really feels like this to me. currently. And yeah, 71k would be the perfect retest of the previous high. So like it would be just a playbook scenario that most of the market would essentially expect. From one point of view, it might not be happening because everyone is expecting that it would be too obvious. So maybe like we wanted to essentially touch 71k and reverse slightly higher. From other point of view, maybe because of the fact that this is a scenario that everyone was waiting, we would go even lower. Because if you can remember, if you can recall what happened on Ethereum, like right here around $3,200, everyone was expecting Ethereum to be at 2,800. And I was saying that just maybe we will repeat the fractal I was showing to you, and we would essentially go to somewhere around $2,100, which is exactly something that happened. And we are even lower at this stage in terms of the price action on Ethereum. So the question I have, kind of the default thought process I have after understanding that maybe memes they will need some time to experience this sideways price action, is to look into alts, to really look into alts and think that, well, maybe they would be the ones that will just continue to perform and do well. We kind of can see that BTC dominance is at a certain resistance at this stage, right? We tapped it 3 times and was like 2 times before we actually got rejected from around these levels. It would be very, very interesting to see what's going to happen from here. But again, guys, I was checking out after this chart back in December. I was just closely watching it, and I was comparing the price action on this chart to the price action on memes and alts. Alts were obviously pumping like crazy through this time, and memes, they were not showing much. They were not moving much. They were catching up when BTC dominance started to go sideways or started to bounce back up. This essentially was the price action on meme coins out there, right? So, and it's a very, very interesting setup because people, they're still kind of eager to buy dips on memes, or they got wrecked already. That's just the guy that I essentially showed that he bought dips on meme coins and they went down 95% right after. So honestly, I'm looking into alts, and the alts I'm looking into, from my point of view, they should be the alts of this cycle, with strong VC backing preferably, and that they did not have a VC's calm pump yet, right? So there are VCs who put hundreds of millions of dollars into these alts, and they did not have a VC's calm pump yet. The speculation here and the argument here might be is that VCs, they got their access already. They were just dumping their supplies and shorting for the whole time of the market movement through the 2024. And I'm very, very salty, and to be honest, I feel stupid that I was just not shorting most of the stuff in terms of the alts. These were just the easiest money in the market. Like it's pretty much crazy to not be shorting like stuff like Mavia. Mavia did like 100. Mavia is probably the best altcoin short this cycle. It did more than 100x's down. It's like the best altcoin short, and I'm essentially longing this thing from the level of 1.3, constantly trying to add margin and decrease my essentially average entry point as well. But this is another thing. So alts that did not have manipulation from VCs yet, because we have to understand, if we're seeing another leg up, this should be taking us to very high levels in terms of BTC. This should finally attract retail. This should finally create the soil where VCs can finally start to unleash the marketing machines and the operations on pushing the assets and pumping the assets that they were investing into and then they were putting their money into in order to essentially pump. Again, Solana did 190 axis last cycle. The market cap of Solana did 1,300 axis. Market was rigged at that time already, right? It's just that I think the playbook was a bit different from the point of view that they were not launching at the crazy high valuations, right? But we're in a different situation currently. Yes, they did launch at a crazy high valuations, right? But the question is, are they at crazy high valuations at this stage? Are alts really overvalued right now? Some of them, yes. Like, can you think of like why layer 2 costs like several hundreds million in terms of the market cap? Probably like as a default business, it should not be valued at this level. But something like Metis, you can essentially look at the chart. It definitely was at the lower prices before in comparison to the situation that we have currently after this whole pump, but kind of retraced the whole pump already. And if we are not going into a bear market currently, which I think we should not be, I think we should be seeing the pump closer to the end of March, the pump that most people will essentially be selling on, the pump that people would think is fake, and it's just not going to be. Then people who would continue to hold. They will try to sell around May because selling May and go away, and we will even continue to have a blow of top right after, right? So this is the station that I'm thinking that I think not a lot of people are planning for currently at this stage. We obviously all hope for it, but here I just try to talk about the assets that I think should be outperforming. From around these levels, probably we are going slightly lower, but the assets that I think should be outperforming moving further into the whole thing. And as a nice narrative, because in crypto, like most narratives, they should be supported by some type of like a bigger, stronger, masculine entity, because most participants are cocks, right? It's going to be a pretty nice narrative in terms of files, because Trump mentioned the reserve. There are ETFs that are being launched as well. So general overview there would be is that ETFs are present, and liquidity from these coins, it will be going into lower coins and things like that. Like it really should be a default like altcoin run as the previous cycles. Finally, when no one believes in it, no one is positioned, no one is screaming about it. Everyone will be selling, everyone will be shorting. Yeah, this is essentially something I'm seeing. So end of March, I know I was talking at the start of February and end of January. I was saying that if February is not going to be bullish, this would be in validation. I would want to check out for the things in the end of March at this stage. And like it's anyway, like it's too late for me to sell anyway at this stage. Thank you very much for watching this one. Stay healthy and rich. I'll be seeing you tomorrow probably. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Bye bye.